Ma'am, so the first few works are mine, Rucha, and my word was reserved. And the sketches on the grey board are the initial concept sketches, and then further explorations of those sketches. समझी?
Rucha, could you just brief me what was the objective of this particular assignment?
Yes, ma'am. We had to choose a partner, and with their initials, we had to make a monogram, and we had to choose a trait, and the monogram is supposed to represent that trait and also be aesthetically appealing. So my trait was reserved, and my partner is Shubham. So the initials are SD. And on the grey, those are my very initial sketches that I showed to ma'am. And then she picked a few of them. So these were the three that she picked, and then I explored them further on a bigger scale.
So could you just zoom in a little more? Okay, just slide it through or just zoom out a bit. Okay, Rucha, you can just keep it there. Yeah, just zoom out a bit and keep it there. Okay, can we hear other students or even the group members to comment on this, please? The class is going to be giving the feedback, so I want if the group members or even the rest of you could initiate the feedback.
Ma'am, in the first row,
Who is that? Sakshi. Yes, yeah, go ahead.
I'm in the first row, the second last one. One is really interesting because she has not made the outline.
Not to ma'am. You have to give that feedback to Rucha. Yeah.
So to Rucha, I was telling that the second last one that you have made, I find it very interesting because there's no outline for the S. So the S is actually blending with the background, and then we can also make out that like that there is a D, like it looks like a book, but at the same time we can make out the letters also, the S and D. So I think it works better than the third last one where you made the outline for S.
Yeah.
So I really like that one. It also shows reserved because the S is hiding the D.
Thank you.
Rucha, why specifically a book? Is there a reason why the book is there?
So conceptually, I was going for the idea that the book is almost closed, like hiding what is inside, and there are layers, so it represents resolve.
Okay. Anybody else?
So Richard, this is Lipi. I really like the second row, last one. So,
Okay.
So like how on the background the shape is forming. So you can also try it the same way you have tried, not putting a border and just with the black space only. I think that's a really interesting concept to work with.
Okay, thank you, Lipi.
Yeah.
Shubham, what do you have to comment on this?
Rucha, this is Shubham. I feel in the first row, the last four, in which you have filled the black at the back. Like the D could be more prominent. It kind of feels like an F.
Okay.
Like in the last one in the first row, it's more prominent, like a little more prominent, but I feel it feels more like an F.
Okay.
In the second row, last one, if it like you could have also tried like removing all the outlines and increasing the black background color more.
Okay.
So there would be a more like better idea of the fonts without using the outlines.
I'll try that. Yeah.
Yeah, the explorations are pretty interesting as to what you've tried to conceptualize. It is emerging, but I think the feedback that you've gotten is something that you could actually implement and take this very exploration even more further. You've done that, you're getting there, but I think a little more could probably get you to the final output of what you're trying to probably convey. So yeah, do that, and these are good explorations as of now.
Thank you.
Yeah. Next from the group.
Ma'am, this is Shubham. Next is me. My partner is Ucha, and the trait I had taken is shy and bold at the same time. So, like on the gray sides are my base explorations, and on the white are my further exploration on the base.
Could you zoom in a bit?
Yeah.
Yeah, that. All right. Yes, feedback from the students.
Ma'am, Geetika here. Sorry, Shubham. Shubham, I really like the first one, because it shows both the characteristics that bold and shy, and at the same time, it's also very, very interesting.
Okay.
Ma'am, this is Shubham, this is Sachi. Even I really like the first one, and I think why it works is because there is this high contrast in the strokes that you've done, which I really like, because there's boldness and then there's the G which is hidden. So
Shubham, this is Prachi. So the last row, first one as well as the second one, I think it works really well because the the variation of the stroke width kind of conveys your concept of shy and bold at the same time. Yeah.
Shubham, this is Rucha. So, I really like the third exploration that you've done on pencil. So, the G, I think you can take that in the explorations as well because I really like the initial thought of it.
Okay.
How you've placed the G next to the R in the third one. Yeah.
They're quite interesting explorations. You've tried to, as one of the students also mentioned, the first one or even the last one, where you've tried to explore the stroke of it and how that kind of creates a sense of balance between the initials, between the two letters, and the way they've been composed together. They're almost as one, but yet you know that you can read them as two different letters. And what you want to imply through those words, the characteristics. So it is interesting. Yet again, I feel if you were to eliminate and now focus on say two of any of your choice or whatever from whatever feedback that you've gathered, you could probably narrow it down to two more, and then see how you can develop that or explore within that. But it's interesting what you've done. Sure.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah. Next.
This is Vishesh, and my partner was Divyam, and my trait was self-sufficient.
Okay, Vivek, I'm going to just ask you, just keep it steady once and have it a little zoomed in. Yeah, I think that would a little more, and that would work. Could you repeat the characteristics again? The words?
Self-sufficient.
Self-sufficient. Yes, can we have the feedback, please? And Vishesh, these are the only explorations, or are there more and you've narrowed it down to these many?
These only, ma'am.
Okay. Yes. Feedback, please.
Vishesh, this is Rucha. I like the last one in the second row. I think it gives off the trait very well. I think you can explore it further with the shape and the curves, etc.
Okay.
I think I'm going to call out names and
Ma'am?
those two. Yes, who's that?
I'd like to give some
Yeah,
feedback to this.
go ahead.
So, Vishesh, who's your partner? Is it Divyam?
Yes.
So, in the last exploration, the last row, the S is more prominent, but if you look closely, then you'll see the D. So, the first thing which we see is S. So, maybe you can try something in that such that we can see the D first and then the S. Because that one is really interesting.
Okay. The last one, right?
Yes.
Ma'am, this is Priyal here. Vishesh, I would like to suggest something on the one Sakshi pointed that instead of having curved edges on the S you have in last one, maybe you can make them according to the outline of D and then we can see D more prominently. Like there are curved edges, so instead of that, the corners can be pointed and the outline of S can be according to D. So
Okay.
anyone else? Vishesh, I think you know what you're trying to depict self-sufficient is not necessarily getting translated. I mean, I get a glimpse of it in the first row that you know there's a certain development that you're trying to do, but it not just a second. Hold on. Yeah, so I think you can explore a little, you know, more than what is here right now. Few more explorations in terms of new concepts would also be interesting to see. Is what I think. I think Kanapriya ma'am is also doing. So yeah. Who's presenting? Vishesh has done it for Divyam. This is SDSNL. Vishesh, I haven't seen your work yesterday. What happened? Were you not present in the class?
Yeah, ma'am, actually I mailed you. There was a power cut in my area.
No, mailing and then WhatsApping doesn't work. You have to present your work in the class. If you're working till, you know, we all are working every day till 6:30 and then we reach home by 7. Okay, it is difficult for us to extend our day further. It is very difficult for us to do that. So please try and ensure that you present your work in the class in front of the teachers. Because I have not seen this even once and I remember not shortlisting even a single one of them. This has been done based on your own choice, isn't it?
Yes, ma'am.
So you need more ideas, okay? What is the person that you're doing it for?
Divyam.
So when you're saying Divyam, okay, the name of the person starts with a D. The D needs to be visible first and then the S.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, you please make sure that the D is the only place where the D is visible first is, and what is the characteristic that you're looking at?
Self-sufficient.
Okay, so the second in the last row is the only one which you can take forward. So you try and embed your S in the negative space of D, but in this case, if you're not able to draw the D well, I've been saying repeatedly that you need to look at some existing typefaces, take that as a foundation, take some Ds as a foundation, and then do the construction. Even for S, if you're not able to do the construction on your own, you need to
take a ready reference. Okay, so and you can also look at the fourth in the second row. These two you can go ahead and you will need more ideas. Okay.
Okay, ma'am. I will work on that.
Yes, can we have the next student, please?
अरे रोहन भाई एक मिनट
Ma'am, you're on mute.
please continue.
I'm asking, is the entire class here or just this group?
The entire class is here.
Okay. Then the students need to give feedback, you know. Divyam, you have also not shown your work before. This is the first time you're showing your work, no?
No, I've shown, ma'am, yesterday I wasn't able to show my work.
So from yesterday, a lot of people have been given individual feedback and they've progressed. And why haven't you filled these drawings of yours? Is this VNS?
Yes, ma'am.
Why haven't you filled these? What's the quality are you looking at?
Ma'am, I was looking at elegant.
Elegant.
Yes, ma'am.
This is far from elegant, you know.
I tried to develop it till the last one. The first one, if you can see, was a selected font, and then you said to add much more curves to it. So I started adding curve, and then it got sharp, very sharp. So I thought, okay, let's remove the sharpness and bring elegance into the picture. So I used some circles in order to give it a very smooth kind of a curvy edges, and then I moved forward with that.
Okay, I'll give you feedback on this once the class gives you feedback. Let the class give feedback, please.
কি হচ্ছে সাঁতার মধ্যে ট্রিগার পয়েন্টটাই তো ভুল দিয়েছিলাম
The students who are not participating should not do it because there are only few students who've been giving their feedback, and that's not how we're going to go about it. Don't make us give names and then go on giving the feedback. You should initiate it yourself. So to the ones who've not been interacting at all, I would really request them to participate, or else I'll have to put names and then you'll have to go about it.
Divyam, the way the both sides of V, like one is shorter, the other is longer, it is interesting. But in some of your explorations, the V doesn't look like V. It looks like a tick mark. So maybe if you could do something about that, then the V would be read as V, I guess.
Okay.
Divyam, this is Rucha. I think what you've done is nice, but it does not show elegance a lot because the font is a little bold. So if you could use a little more delicate lines and thinner strokes, maybe that could help.
Okay.
Hi Devin, this is Rishabh here. So as for the explorations, in the first few I'm able to read the V first, but like as it progresses, I'm reading the S first in most of them. So that's what I feel about that. Because in the first and the second one, the V is like reading. I read the V first and then the S, but after that it's all I'm reading it as SV and rather than VS.
Okay, that's okay.
Vishesh, this is Prachi. In the first row and the last exploration, I think that the form of S is very elegant, but like Rucha said, because of the weight, it feels very bold. So I think if you could reduce the weight and at the same time use this form of S, I think it would work.
বাড়ছে তো নাকি
Divyam, this is Vicky. And I think like if you want to, I usually think when things are elegant, I think much more of a serif type case. So I think you can try that out also. Use the serif type. Divyam, this is Sachi. I think you could also try eliminating some other parts of the V, like instead of just the top part that you've taken in all the exploration, you might find some interesting spaces.
Can you elaborate on that?
So like in the V that you've taken, you've eliminated the top portion in all the exploration, right?
Right.
So instead of that, if you could even try eliminating some other portion instead of just the top portion, then you might find some interesting spaces to fit your S also.
Okay. Ma'am?
Yes. I think, ma'am, you're on mute. That's why we're not able to hear you.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just giving my feedback. So basically, he's saying, Vishesh is saying, Divyam is saying elegant, and he's done for Vishesh, isn't it?
Yes, ma'am.
So, Divyam, first of all, you need some more ideas for elegant. You have just stuck to this one single idea, right? So, however, I do feel that it is slowly progressing, especially the one that you've done in the end. Now, in this, what are the other possibilities? You've begun to curve the S, all right? So, for the S, you can also try to use the circle guide to create your S's which are more curvy in nature. So, you can get the curves using circles. Okay, so if you draw a circle to get the curve and then build around it, that might help. Then getting some edges of the V also to smooth down a little might also start adding. Now right now it is going absolutely straight in the air. Now, supposing if this V was of the quality wherein it was not this thick, maybe there was a thick and thin combination wherein there are, things. I'm not saying you use Bodini, but have you seen Bodini? The typeface Bodini?
No, ma'am.
So have a look. So sometimes a combination of thick and thin adds to the elegance. So try and work more with the typefaces here. The typeface of V. And for the S also, you can change an alternate S, and you can also start, so for the same one, you can start using the circles to create that S. And it would be helpful to create at least 5 to 6 more versions of this. One in which your corners are tapered, right, of the V. Corners of S are tapered, and S getting constructed using circles, where the V is a combination of thick and thin, or where the V is more flow in nature. Okay, so you need to try various combinations for this idea. So this is not resolved yet. It has just begun, I would say. Okay, and another thing, you need more ideas. You cannot just bank on one single idea. You need one more idea at least to explore, so that we can zero down on one single sort of work of yours. Okay, so all the best. Start working. Next person.
And I request, so what we are going to do is this group done, or are there more members from this group?
Ma'am, we are done. There was one more person that she's.
And who is that?
Can I quickly look at the first two papers here, which I didn't see in the group? Tina, you'll have to mute yourself. Yeah. Who's this person? Quickly present.
Yes, Rucha.
Yeah.
So after yesterday's discussion, I explored what you suggested and things with the shapes, giving erasing the lines, inverting. You said the second one.
Yeah. So, see, I'll give you now very specific feedback. Your first one is evolving beautifully. Can you see that yourself?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So there are different iterations here that I see. Let the group also tell you which one looks most like a book. Is something that you need to see here, and then you need to also figure out which part of it you want to darken and which part of it you don't want to darken. Just sorry, I had to keep repeating. So now you start taking one of these and say, okay, if I don't want to darken the S, but I want to at least thicken the lines of S, so that when we reduce it to a smaller size, okay, when we reduce it to say half an inch or less than half an inch, the S, details of S should not disappear. So for that, what you will do is, you will, the outline of S needs to be thicker. So you will explore that part. And if you want to keep the D darker, okay, then you will darken it completely. But in your first option, I can see a double line for D, which I believe is just to support the form of the book, right? Yes. So that also you would have to see with various thicknesses, and then we later on take a call. We'll take a call based on reducing the size and if the details are not lost. Okay, so take the first option here. Okay, and even in the second option here, if you darken, if you work on the outline of the S, you darken the D, and then the book-like feeling which is being done at the edges, which part you will darken, and as in the outline part you will darken, and then we'll see after reducing. So the reduction will also have to be done by you. You'll have to step out of your home and take a printout in less than half an inch or half an inch and see whether the details are working or not. This is something that would have to be done.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, if possible, if your parents permit, that is.
Yes, ma'am.
So now in the first option, these details need to be worked out. In the second option, what you're going to do is like the S&D is working very beautifully, the first S&D, right? But that rectangle in the background at the moment is not adding any value.
Okay.
Okay, so you'll have to thicken the line for it to add any value.
Okay.
Yeah, because right now it's just kept there. It's not adding any value. In the second one also, it's just kept there. It's not adding any value. What should you do? Should you increase the size of the rectangle? Those explorations I've been telling you since yesterday, but you've not done.
I tried eliminating it actually.
So, yeah, eliminating is possible. Eliminating wouldn't take much of effort. Eliminating is easy, right?
Yeah.
But if you were to explore as a background in the rectangle in the background, then what would be the size of that rectangle? What would be the curves of the rectangle? And so these are the things that you need to explore. That is why you need at least 10 more sheets with all of these. So don't shy away from exploring further on this.
Okay.
This is what we call form exploration. And you cannot resolve it unless you've done at least 20 of all of these. Or maybe more. Understand?
Yes, ma'am.
So that S and D needs a little bit of the rectangle in the background of your S and D needs a bit more work here. You can also, like the way you've tried to bring in the curves in the S, you've sliced a part of S and then you've sliced a small portion of D. Similar thing you can try with the outer rectangle. You can bring in a little curvature there just to complement the inside forms.
Ma'am, I tried that, but it wasn't working out.
You have to show it. And how much are you curving is what is important here. You have to try it. This is what we call form exploration. We will not just let you do one thing that you come up with. You have to explore, and unless you explore, your sensibilities will not develop. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Similarly, so and for the third one also, again, you have to try apply the Gestalt law of closure here. Okay. I think in the second one it's working quite well. But when you don't use a very dark pencil, because what is happening is the dark pencil that you erase, no, it is visible. So we need to actually apply Gestalt law of closure so that our eyes complete the S, not that erased. That erased line that we can see a little bit, not that. That is not currently closing and making an S. It has to get formed by the closure law of closure, based on the law of closure. Okay, next person, please.
Thank you, ma'am.
Who's the group member who's not presented their work here?
Ma'am, Astha,
Okay, and is Astha here on the meeting? Do you guys know
RNG?
yes, ma'am, this is Shubham. I've taken the initials RNG.
Yeah. See, it is working beautifully, Shubham. I must tell you, your first option is working out so well. But you have not tried different options. It's the same option repeating, no? No,
Increasing the depth,
okay. Yes.
and the length also.
Yes. Wonderful. It's working very well. You try some more options. And what is the characteristic here we are looking at?
Ma'am, shy and bold at the same time.
Yeah, working very well. Excellently well. Try some more options here. In the last one, what I had told you has not been done. I told you to do away with the face and try different kinds of art. In the third one.
Yes, okay, ma'am.
Yeah. So I don't want you to take a face here. I want you to take an R here. Okay, so basically the G is coming out from the rectangle, right? And
Yes.
inside that there is an R, like you tried in the fifth one. So if you don't fill it so roughly, and if you fill it absolutely perfectly, see then what happens.
Okay, ma'am.
And then have a perfect R in between. The R has to then look like R, not like a face. Is that
Yes,
okay,
ma'am.
Shiva? Understood?
Yes.
And
Yes.
and the first G that you had taken here, the first G, your first option, which you showed me the other day,
Yes, ma'am.
that is working quite well. That composition is working quite well. So take that first option that you showed me, take that, take a rectangle, fill it, place an R inside, get rid of the counters and the details of the R, and place a flowy G like this. Okay, and start building on that. Like for example, then if you take the G in a different thickness, what happens? If you take a different kind of G, which is like this kind of small case G, but slightly more decorative, then what happens? So start with that also, that exploration. The third one also needs a bit of more work, especially yeah. The second option is more balanced in the fourth row. As in the first option, the first option after the
I'm just
original.
kind of stuck in the fourth option. Like, to me, both of them looks like a little weird. So I stopped for a while. So I'll try that out too in the fourth one.
Yeah, the fourth one, the first option that you're showing is working. However, G seems to be tilting. You may not have done it, but sometimes you have to correct the work optically also.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, sometimes it needs to be optically corrected. Right now, what is happening is R is straight, but the G is tilting. Right? The first option needs a bit of correction, but very good work here, good finishing here. And in the third option, like I'm telling you, the original what you showed me was the best. So just develop that a little more. Try with different small case G's, try with different S's and see where it goes.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, next person.
Ma'am, we are done. Like, our group is done.
Okay, next group then.
And what we're going to do now is the group members themselves will have to give each other the feedback before we comment in. So we don't have to call out names. Once you present, the group members should then initiate. The rest of them, apart from the one who's presenting, should give feedback first, and then we will give in our feedbacks. Which is the next group? Fourth group. Are the members here?
Yes, ma'am, I'm sharing the screen.
Okay.
Screen is visible.
Yes, it is visible.
Ma'am, this is Vedai. Ma'am, I have shown bold in this.
Classmates will give feedback.
And not ma'am, you're addressing it to the class, and even when the group members give their feedback, again, it has to be directed to Vedahi and the following people who will present. Go ahead, Vedahi.
Yeah, so I have tried to show bold from these like figures. So I wanted to show triangles and cube to show some stability and like the boldness in it. So I use that.
This is Sachi. I like the first row, fourth one.
where the F is like cut diagonally. Like it also has a triangle and a cube. So that looks interesting.
Vedahi, this is Sakshi. I really like the third exploration in the second row because there's a sense of perspective in it, and the letters are very clear. And there, even though it's flat, but there is a sense of dimension in it. So it looks really nice.
Which one? Which one? Third and second row?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah.
So which is your third? We are not looking at the original on the left, no? Which is on grey background. We are not looking at that, no?
No, ma'am. Starting from the exploration itself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so the third one. Okay. Anybody else?
Vedi, this is Navya. I like your second thought of the exploration, but maybe you can try the perspective in it, like the opposite direction, the S bigger and the F smaller, so that the S is bigger and it's more visible and gives the boldness more.
Which one are you talking about? Can you just repeat?
Like the first, like the 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth one. The apex of the triangle should be in the opposite direction, so the S gets a larger space. It looks more bigger and more bold.
Okay, got it. I'll try that.
Yeah.
Everybody's done?
Vedi, Anirudh here. So your last exploration on the top row, I think the F is being the negative space you used to show F. It's coming out quite beautifully, but the S is getting quite lost in there. Like it's not perfectly. You cannot perfectly render it that there is an S there. So maybe you can work something there.
Okay, yeah, I'll work on that.
Everybody's finished?
Whether this is Shubham in the first row, last one, I quite like the idea. Like I would like to see more of those exploration. Like that idea is to be quite good.
Okay, yeah, I'll try that. The negative.
Yeah. So I quite agree with the group that the last one needs further exploration, and what is happening right now is the S is getting lost. So the recognition of alphabet is important. So I think there are possibilities there. You could try some other things which would make the S also slightly more visible. So see what can be done about it and explore that further. As a visual form, I quite like, the second in the first row because I think it is very well balanced. So that also needs further exploration, I feel. Heavier than the S. Where it's forming the triangle, that's also quite interesting. Is it possible to do something similar with the S also? I'll leave you at that. And where the bottom row is concerned, my concern with these explorations, I'll go one by one. In the first one, the F is not in its correct orientation. So that is not something that I would support. The same goes in the second option. And the third one somehow reminds me of, the Superman kind of logo. I quite like the last one. It is balanced, but in the last one, F is getting actually dominated by S. So not just metaphorically, but also literally. So that can be resolved where both the alphabets get equal emphasis. So I want you to go ahead with the last one in the second row and explore more and see how the visibility of the S is possible. The second in the first row. And in the last one, it's a very general kind of feedback in the second option that we need to see the S first, but at the same time, F is equally important as an alphabet. So, how do you resolve it in a triangle that both get, justified? That's missing at the moment.
Okay, ma'am. I'll try to further exploring that.
Yeah. No, I think you should wait for Preena's feedback, people.
Yeah. Betty, I quite like the explanations that you've done here. It's interesting to see it is getting resembled what you're trying to depict out of the chosen word. I too have inclination towards the second or third one. The motion that it kind of gives and the way it looks a bit edgy as well. In terms of representing that person. But however, maybe, right now, because you've sketched it out, it's not too precise, and both of them kind of merge towards the end. I don't know if that is done deliberately or were they supposed to be separated. So if it is supposed to be merged, then that is also not getting represented, and if they're supposed to be apart, that is also not, so maybe you need to refine that. Even the third last in the first row, however, I think that very well strikes the balance between the two letters. Again, but the spacing is probably something that you'll have to work on. But apart from that, it's going in the right direction, and just take on the feedback that has been given from the rest of the members as well. Yeah.
Okay, ma'am.
Vaidehi, I think the last one is very balanced in the whole sheet, in the second option. The last one is very, very well balanced. But somehow that dominating the S, dominating the F, if something can be done about it. In this, maybe you can try reversing the H and see how it goes. अभी तो ऐसा लग रहा है that S is on top of S, which is literally and metaphorically both ways. So if you reverse the F, then what happens? See what happens. Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're good to go. Next person.
Thank you, ma'am.
You need to keep exploring on a new sheet, every time on a new sheet.
Yes,
Who's this person? Kriti.
Ma'am, this is Kriti here, and my word was lively, and alphabet was A and D.
Why such hurried work, Kriti? कितना घंटा लगाया कल? Honestly, tell me. First,
I was working late.
No, first I had a difficulty choosing a couple of options from your original sheet in which you've done the ideas. And now you've not done enough. As in, you've not even looked at various typefaces. Like I said, I've been telling everybody, if you can't construct alphabets, take some alphabet as a basis and build on it. But you need the right proportions. Okay? I'll let the class give feedback. Let the class give feedback and then we'll give feedback as well. Yeah, people give feedback. She's waiting. Okay, I'll call out the names of people to give feedback. Vaidehi, are you there?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, please help your classmate. This is not you're helping your classmates. It is your responsibility, and it is also a learning experience for you all. This will sharpen your senses. So everybody will give feedback. Come on.
I personally think that you should take something, some fonts that are existing and that are little quirky or something like that. That shows some flow or liveliness. So first thing that I notice is that you should take some existing fonts. Right now it just looks, I don't know, not in the correct shape. And yeah, so I think that first you should take a look into the fonts because it's not clearly showing lively right now.
Okay. Will do.
Kriti, in the first exploration of yours, the T is not very visible. So I think if when you'll ink them, you'll make it completely black, then the T won't be visible at all. So you can do something about it.
Yeah.
Next person.
Kriti, I feel that in the first base exploration, you can just stick to the orientation of T as it is and try with different forms with that.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Kriti, I think in your third base exploration, you can maybe work further on it. Like, for example, the second exploration you've done, instead of lively, it's giving very sinister vibes because you've decided to make the ends quite pointy. Instead, maybe just try to replicate what you've done in the base one and work around with the spacing and the width along with the various different forms you can use there.
Okay. Yeah.
Everybody's done with the feedback? Okay, I agree with the group. Like in your first row, if you are going to ink it, this will become one black blob. You know, the T will completely disappear. You won't even recognize the T in all three. In the second row, first option, same problem. The T is there, but it may not be recognized as T. In the second row, second option, both the alphabets are very clearly visible. But what is the characteristic that you are addressing here? It is lively.
Lively.
So, to make it more lively, that A and T, what would you do? Would you, instead of having like a very horizontal kind of baseline, would you make that diagonal and try to set your A and T on a diagonal plane? Could you try something like this? Right? Could you try separating the A and T a little and joining them only at the bottom? So try some of these things, because here the characteristic that you're addressing is lively. In the third row, again, your first option that you showed was quite interesting. Okay, but the second one, the first, as in what you showed yesterday was interesting, your master sheet, right? But as we how you see how you begin to explore this in the first option, the T, when it's begun to take a curve, it may also be read as J, so that should not happen. The third one is getting there. I mean, you could call it lively because of the treatment of the letter forms and the curves, but there is more scope. Okay, so now start building on the third in the last row and second in the middle row. Start building on these two and see where you reach. You've been seeing other people's work, how the form is evolving slowly, right? So you have to try different things, different weights, different stroke weights, different alphabet weights, and then see where it goes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And try also different kind of letter forms, if you can't draw, you can take help of existing typefaces.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Take Reena's feedback.
Yes.
Kriti, my feedback is going to be that I feel the comments you've received already, the only different thing that I probably want to say is that you will have to explore more, because at the first glimpse of what I see, I'm not too very happy with the work that I see here, the explorations that have come about, as compared to you've seen other presentations that have been made by the students, even your own group members. So try to really understand the weight of a letter, of any letter that you choose or any existing typeface that you choose, and then trying to incorporate that to create a composition using the two different kind of letters. That is not getting translated here at all. Even the explorations that you've done here, they don't seem as a composition. They seem too different from each other, is what I feel. Maybe in the first row there is something that you tried to do which is first two rows, but I think I need to see more for me to comment. So try really understanding the characteristics of a particular type as well, and then incorporate that. So using an existing type in order to create a composition would be a better idea right now for you, because as I said, it's not getting visualized here. So try doing that, and then we'll see from there.
Thank you.
And stay in the group, because you will learn a lot from the feedback being given to other students. Don't leave the meeting. Yeah.
And I just hope that rest of the students are very attentive and are looking at the presentation, because it is equally important to see what others have explored. Sometimes you might get restricted to a certain way of composition or a form, but when you see how your peers are going about it, it might even help you build on your own explorations further. So please be behind your screens. I hope you guys are. Yes. Go ahead, you guys.
Who's the person here? Okay, everybody has to give feedback. You first take feedback from your class, and then we'll give you feedback.
So the initials were V and P, and the adjective I've chosen was smart.
Okay, people. Quickly. And anybody else, also, who's present here not in this particular group wants to say something, is more than welcome. Make it lively. It's up to you how you make it lively, people.
Sachi, what was your adjective?
Smart.
Okay. So, according to that, I really like your first exploration in the first row itself, because it in itself is very smart, because it's just one line making the whole logo, and the proportion of the alphabets are also really nice. And even though it's a line drawing, but it has a great impact. So yeah, I really like it.
Ma'am, this is Rishabh here. I really like the first row, third one. I really like how the letters are clearly visible, and still the single line effect is like it's still prominent in there. Also, I like the condensed form in the letters.
Okay, anybody else?
This is Sachi. Sachi, I really like the last one, second row, where again you take the same concept of using just one line to form both of them. But why I feel it works better than the first one is because there's a lot of things that are going on, and you can still make out the letters. So I think it's more interesting in the last one, second row.
Everybody's finished? Anybody in the class wants to give feedback? See, giving feedback is a learning experience. Yes, please go ahead. Who's this?
Yeah, this is Valley. I just like the third one in the first row, but I think she can explore like making it smaller, or like the variations between lines and all.
Yeah,
it has also possibility, and I really like that.
Anybody else? In the class, anybody wants to give feedback? Nobody? Okay, so yeah, I agree with most of your classmates. The idea of a single line forming the alphabets in the first two rows is very interesting, but it has further possibilities. Okay, who's the presenter here?
Sachi.
Kriti, no?
Sorry, Sachi. No, Sachi is presenting.
Sachi. So Sachi, there are lots of possibilities still, because right now what you've done is that you've been able to get the basic sort of an idea in place. Now, supposing if you were to treat it not in these straight lines drawn with a scale, and if you were to do it in a very flowy kind of manner, then what would happen? Following the same concept. You can also draw spontaneously using the same concept and do a little bit best. So see, why I'm saying this is that it may not work. Maybe we come back to this again. Okay, maybe we take one of these ideas. Just a minute. Can you all be soft? So maybe we come back to the same idea. But what happens is that when we are saying explore as much as possible, why we are doing this is because when you explore different, form development originating from one idea, that will, really open up your mind and also open up your eyes to see various things. So it's very important, and also because you will compare what you did earlier and what you're doing now. You will compare, you will take a visual decision based on your own explorations. So don't stop yourself. Again, another thing that you could try is that most of these are with the same stroke thickness. What if you were to do with a because see, what will happen is that one of the basic things of logo design is that, and we've said this right in the beginning, it should be readable when it is small in size, it should be visible when it's small in size, it should not lose its details, and same goes when it's enlarged, when it's scaled up. Okay, so when I reduce this, I should not lose any details, therefore I have to explore different stroke thickness. Okay, so that is for both of your first two options. Okay, so now what will happen is in the second option, when you explore the stroke thickness, you may have to eliminate some of the details. Like, for example, the idea of forming a VMP with one continuous line is very good, but you may have to remove some of the details there. Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
So start building on in the first row, start building on the second, first and third. In the second row, start building on the second last. Okay, here the triangle is standing alone. It's not a continuous line. So the concept has got missed. So that you have to, that is the concept. Okay, then you have to make sure that the triangle is also built on a continuous line. Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
And in the last row, your first one still is very strong. The remaining ones have somehow lost the balance. Maybe you can explore further the the fourth in the last row, but you have to ensure that if there is a gap between these, folds, okay, there the gap is sufficient enough, because when we are going to reduce it in size, then these will merge.
Yes, ma'am, I'll explore further.
So explore these. The second one also can be explored further. The fourth one can be explored further. And of course, the first one, of course, the first what you showed yesterday, taking from there, if you were to say take a broader V, then what happens? So all those things you try.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So a lot more to do. A lot more explorations required.
Sachi, I just want to sum it up that though my opinion is also an inclination is towards the first exploration that you've done. It's interesting, it's different. The first row and the first very option that I see. But of course, it does need, ma'am, I'm just going to mute you, I'm hearing myself. Yeah, thank you. So it definitely does need further explorations, as it's this cannot be just it. What I see right now, I'm not too sure about the second row, because it feels a lot is trying to go on, and hence it's not getting the visibility that the letters should be otherwise getting. So maybe one line is fine rather than using two different lines. As far as for the third row is concerned, it's good. I think, you're trying to probably even use gradient within the form. So maybe, the folds are in the last options that you've done, the folds are getting more clear and visible. But is that necessarily, getting inclined towards representing smart? See to it, because I think that particular row can have a little more further explorations that you could do. Because what I had the glimpse of it, what I can see, which is the different weight that you've tried to use through one line, or even using the 3D folding effect, which is interesting. So try to do that even further, try to develop it further, and see how you could achieve that. But even in the third row, I think while you have these cut edges, is there another way that you can go about it? Different shape, perhaps, not the way you've done it here, but another route, because them together are looking interesting. The both letters, getting formed together look very interesting, but as a whole, when you look at them, then maybe through different lines, different weight, it would probably emerge out better. So see how you could do that. Yeah, that's it.
So one thing that I wanted to point out was that at some places it has also begun to look like a U. So every time when you're looking at it, close your eyes for like 30 seconds and then open your eyes, and then you'll see differently. Every time you create something, do that, and make sure that you, with all your A4 sheets, you're able to paste them up on a straight wall, white wall, and compare one with the other and see where you're going. And if you look at your own work after a while, then also, you'll get a different perspective from yourself. Because what happens is that after we keep looking at it for like 2 hours continuously and don't take a break, it kind of becomes a blind spot and we miss a lot of things. So it's important that you take a break from your work and then relook at it. You'll yourself get a different perspective. Like, for example, what is happening in the in the third row is that if you were to make it complete black, how would it look? Try that also. Because we are eventually going to do this in black and white. We are not doing this gradation that you've done here. We will be doing it in black and white. Then if it is plain black, then what will happen to all the folds? Try that also. And when I'm saying try that, I don't want to tell you that what will happen. I want you to try and see what is happening. Therefore, taking these, when you're folding, making white gaps in between might work. But what should be the distance? How much that white gap should be? Because what will happen is that if you reduce it in size, again the lines will merge. So that gap has to be figured out. When we reduce in size, we'll have to take a print and see for ourselves if the gap is mixing. Then we will have to increase the gap. Understanding?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, perfect. So you have a lot of work to do. All the best. Need to see lots and lots of variations of these ideas of yours, visual ideas of yours.
Yes, ma'am.
Next. Who's the person?
Ma'am, this is Anirudh. This is my work.
Okay, Anirudh. A little progress since yesterday. Let others give feedback. What is the characteristic here, Anirudh?
Ma'am, energy, more or less energetic.
People?
This is Rishabh. I like the graffiti explorations that you have made. It really fits well with the energetic characteristic. And also the first row, it's something very clean about it and which gives it a very nice appeal.
Okay, Anirudh, this is Shubham, and I really like the second row, the whole row 2 and the third option in the second row. Like there are these strokes that are going out, and it feels like the trait is being displayed well. and the first row it kind of feels like more of a elegant logo and something that would go well with a car, I guess. So, and the last option in the first row that also works well, I guess.
Okay, thanks. Bro.
Others?
Anirudh, this is Kriti here, but I also feel that second row, third one depicts the trait energetic because of the lines.
Anirudh, this is Akhil here. I like the way how you use italics and like the bold one in the first row because it kind of shows like that energy and fast kind of trait. First row would can explore more. I mean, and the last one, the third one, the second one, I think it kind of shows more like dangerous than energetic. So yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Which one looks dangerous, you said?
And the third row, second one.
Third row, second one. Achha, you saying it looks dangerous. Okay. Okay, Anirudh, which one do you like and why?
Ma'am, from the first row, I am in flux between the third one and the fourth one because the idea there is similar, only the difference is that there is a stroke there. It's more symmetrical in the third one. And in the second row, I really like my third exploration mainly because of the strokes I've added and the appendages that I've created coming from the letter form. So it's really giving that energetic vibe.
Okay, and
then the last one from the graffiti one. It's going in character with what Akhil is mostly about. He's energetic, creative, artsy and all. So mainly focusing on energetic, I think the three-dimensionality of it is somewhat giving it a form of energy or entropy, something like that.
okay. You know what you should do? In the first row, you're saying you're in a flux between third and the fourth one, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So in the third one, I don't see A and R. I only see two A's, or I'm also looking at two H's.
Ma'am, just a sec. Kriti, can you just zoom in? I think, ma'am, it's probably because of like you seeing the whole picture right now, so it's not really visible that much.
Yeah.
But there is like that small curve that's distinguishing the two of them. If you can see it now.
Yeah, now I can see it. Okay, yeah, those details were missing, but then those details need to be slightly more pronounced, so that we don't, if we reduce it in size, like I've been telling everybody, the basic, very foundational thing about designing logos is that you should be able to use it in any size. It should not lose details. So if this detail that you are enlarging and showing me is more pronounced, then maybe if you reduce it in size and use this logo, this will not be lost. Now, if you were to try some of the things like, the same idea, the idea remains the same. Supposing if you were to increase the darker part becomes thicker and the negative space becomes lesser, then what happens? Okay.
Right now, yeah.
Yeah. Right now, I quite like this idea specifically because, somehow it gives me a feeling of the wing of a bird. Okay.
I'm sorry, ma'am, the wing of a bird.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bird's wing. So, if that can be visually more pronounced, for that, what will you have to do? Would you have to go slightly more, diagonal? The alphabets are tilting towards the right, they need to tilt a little more. Then what happens if the darker area becomes broader and the negative space becomes lesser? Then what happens? So basically what you're going to do is you need to take this as a foundation and start building on it. So what happens when you get more positive space by increasing the thickness of the alphabets? You could also try, maybe, I don't know whether it will work or not, maybe the diagonal lines inside the form.
Right. Okay.
So these explorations are required. The thing is, these explorations are needed. Can you reduce the overall size of the concept board? Yeah, no, increase it a little. Yeah, stay here. Now, in the second row, third one, I agree with most of them that somehow it gives a very energetic kind of a feel. So if this becomes your base, then if you were to add a couple of more of these strokes in between, or if you were to reduce some strokes in between, or just change the composition of these strokes, you have to try some of these things.
Okay.
Again, keeping in mind that the negative space between the two A's, right? The thin line which is also forming in E and R inside, when you reduce it in size, will the strokes details remain, and where will the negative space disappear? So maybe you need to increase that white space in between alphabets a little more. I'm not talking about the counter spaces.
Yeah, understood, ma'am.
Yeah. Now go down. Yeah, the third one is interesting, but you need to again try more things on this. Again, I feel that the details will be lost when you reduce it in size. So how will you ensure that the details are not lost? For that reason, you need to do more explorations.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah?
Yes, ma'am.
So now start building on these three options that you have.
Yes, ma'am.
3 or 4, and you can take something that you also like. That's not a problem.
Sure, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Even this idea, the last one, I think I agree with Shubham when he said that the first row, last idea, where you try to put some lines in between. Now, what would be the distance of these lines be? Whether these will be, not done geometrically and would be just, spontaneously drawn. What is that idea? So right now it's just begun. What I see here is it's just begun as an idea. However, adding that texture at the bottom of the alphabets is adding a little bit of energy to it, which I agree. So how do you explore this idea further and not leave it here?
Yes, ma'am. Maybe I can work with the lines the way I'm putting them.
Yes.
Yeah.
So whether those will be geometric lines or whether those will start as thick lines and then start becoming narrower.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Right, or they will be at equal thickness and at equidistant as well, or they will start thicker and then they'll keep thinning as you move ahead in the letter forms.
Yes, ma'am.
So these are the explorations that we want you to try. Because what will happen, this will really help you visually. And this will help you see how one small idea, there are so many variations that can be created, and each variation will communicate and connote something else.
Yes, ma'am.
So are you with me on this?
Yes, ma'am.
Will you explore?
Yes, ma'am. Sure.
Perfect. So tomorrow again we'll have another round of this meeting, and everybody will give feedback. So make sure that you are ready. Over to you, Tina.
So Anirudh, while I really like how all three of them are different explorations that you've tried to do. At the same time, my feedbacks are almost on the same lines of what the rest of them have said. First, being the last row and the last option, though it visually seems very interesting, but to me, it not necessarily is representing energy. However, if you reduce probably the thickness of it and try the same form, perhaps you could try to achieve it. And try maybe, to even incorporate what you've tried to do right above.
In the third one and the second one. Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
So maybe then, and just one stroke of it, not even multiple, just one of it, how the flashlight that you have, just one of it.
Just a small displacement.
Yeah. So maybe then that would work. But the thickness of it is, I don't think it, because when you think of energy, you wouldn't have something so thick to be represented. Perhaps probably a little lighter weight than what is shown here. That is one. In the second row, in the first row, what I like is also, you've tried to give a certain movement. It's right. So that kind of also is interesting. But I think when you zoomed in and showed that part, that there are details that you've tried to show which does represent the art, but that form can be developed further, I feel. See how you could do it, because right now if you just take a glance at it, it's not really working, but it has a possibility to have different iterations to it. At the same time, I feel in the second row, I am not too sure if the third one really works so much as probably how I am right now visualizing the last row and the last option. Maybe what I have in my head is something, the blend of both of them would probably help you achieve what you're trying to represent. So see to it how you could, take it further. And just try to blend these options and see what comes out. Yeah, but overall, these are good explorations.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
And how many more from this group?
Ma'am, I'm the last one.
Okay, Acha, go ahead.
So my trait was rhythmic.
Can you zoom in a little, please?
From the first three are the base explorations, and then I took forward, and then the first two, after the discussion, the first two the base were more prominent to work on, so I tried more explorations on that with different thicknesses and thinness.
Let the classmates give some feedback.
Can we have the feedback from the classmates, please?
Okay, this is Anirudh here. I really like the direction you're taking your attribute to. Like when you say rhythmic, we mainly associate rhythm with music. So seeing your musical notes here, it kind of makes sense that the attribute you're choosing, and like it connects properly with it. So like in the first exploration and slightly with the third panel. So yeah.
Thank you.
Anirudh, which one are you specifically pointed out? And whoever is handling the concept board can just mark it?
Ma'am, I'm not pointing out at a specific particular exploration, but her connection of her ideas to her attribute. Like if she's following rhythmic, she's working in the terms of using musical notes, like the similarity, like the visual design of musical notes and incorporating them into her monograms. So I was commenting on that idea in the connection.
Anybody else?
मोबाइल का अप्लाई कीजिए टीचर को भी एक्टिव करें जो नंबर वर्क कर रहा है वो पूरा कि अभी आप लोग इधर आने वाले कांटेक्ट करेंगे तो कुछ प्रॉब्लम का मोबाइल से कई सारे स्टूडेंट का मोबाइल नहीं
Okay. So which one do you like, Navya?
Ma'am, the first row, last one.
First row, last one. Can you just mark it? Why?
I think it's minimalistic than the previous ones. Also, the SNP are visible and the sign of a musical note, I think it's visible, which I relate to the trait.
Yeah, I mean, it is in line with the discussion that we had yesterday that you need to look at some musical notes and try to bring that in PMS. But somehow I feel that what you showed yesterday were much cleaner options compared to what you're showing today. You added a lot of complications to your forms. So yesterday you showed such clean options. Like for example, if I look at yesterday's sheet, the first option, first row, the third in the first row.
Yes.
So it's so clean. So if you take that as a base and if you just make some slight changes and accentuate your P and also add something to it that it begins to look like a musical note. Because these options are much cleaner than what you've done today.
Yes, ma'am.
And what is happening is that the S and P both are getting lost in your today's explorations.
Yes, ma'am.
That is the problem that I see. However, of course, the basic idea of getting inspired by the musical notes is there in all of them. Look at more of musical notes and see how you can create your S and P together by adding some of these elements. Like for example, the one that you created yesterday. And if you were just to take this bottom stroke, which you added today.
Yes, ma'am.
If you were just to add that slightly, be very minimalistic in your approach. Don't complicate things. And still you will be able to achieve that feeling of a musical note. Even in the second row, I feel that what you showed yesterday were far superior to what you explored today. Look at those first two options that you created yesterday in the second row. Mark those for me. Not these. Second row.
The
second option. Yeah, second one. Go down. Yeah, go down. This one. These two. Upper jaw. These two. Both of these. Yeah. Now look at the visual balance in these. Look at the rhythm. Look at the flowiness. And also look at the recognition of the alphabet. Look at the infinity sign getting created in between.
Yes, ma'am.
This is what I feel that you should have taken that as a base. Now, what will happen is that if you go ahead with this exactly the same thing, then again the details will be lost because the S and P is actually very thin and you need to thicken it a little.
Yeah, yes, ma'am.
So that you can explore, and also in today's exploration for the same idea, the third one is slightly balanced visually.
In the second ideation, which third one? I didn't.
Where your cursor is pointing, where your name is written.
Okay. Oh yeah, got it.
So that of course is interesting, but visually less balanced than what you'd shown yesterday.
Yeah, yes, ma'am.
Can you see that yourself?
Yeah, yes, ma'am. I also found that the recent ones are more complicated and just too much there is going on.
Okay.
I'll explore more on that basis.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm done.
Okay. I Navya feel that while it's a good direction that you're going towards, you got stuck into this one formation, that you wanted to play with a musical note. That is very much possible even if you tried to play with negative and positive space, which would help you probably achieve a little more visual clarity and balance. I'm talking about the first row, the explorations over there, because it does represent the word, but it's not that impactful visually. I mean, there still needs to be there has to be a lot of refinement that needs to come about, and it's getting too complicated. I feel there's too much that is going on. I mean, from the rest of the feedback also that you heard. So to simplify it, because as it is, you have to understand the musical note itself has a certain form that you need to show for it to be represented as that musical note, and to have that get translated here, you will have to now probably play with the negative and the positive space. Here what you've tried to do is you've tried to use that one stroke, and maybe a bit of thickness and all of that has been explored. But the negative, why I'm stressing on this part is because you'll see what would emerge out of it. You try it and then you'll probably see how it's getting represented much better if you use that way of showing this. As opposed to the first row, the second row has much more simplified. I mean, visually only itself, you can see it's much more easy for the eyes to read that. So, while if you're more inclined towards the first option, then it needs more exploration as to how it can be visually a little less complicated. And yes, more simplified, and yet have that representation of the musical note. So that is there. Again, the second one, the second row, there are times like I don't know how to. I think the second option that you've shown here looks more like that's not. Is that a G?
Which one? No, it's everything is SNP.
Right? Yeah. So it appears like a G to me. The second one. So you have to see that which one would probably.
Yeah, she's not talking about where your cursor is. She's talking about forward. Yeah.
So see to it that even when especially when you're using different curvatures and trying to build forms like that, you should make sure they don't necessarily get visualized as some other letter. There are chances because of the flowy nature of what you'd want to show. So while going abstract, it probably might represent another letter. So try avoiding that part. So every time, and this applies to all of the other students also, once you have a look at it, it's good to show it to probably somebody else and then have a look at it yourself again and see, because what you might visualize might not be necessarily how others are visualizing it, and which is okay, that is fine, but the generic view of it shouldn't get lost. So and I, as a whole, Navya, I feel explore more, but it has to be more of how you're exploring with the space, with the formation, because that is getting restricted here now, is what I feel. So in order to make it even simplified and yet have something interesting, you'll have to try different ways. So whether that is the negative positive space, or whether it's some different typeface. So yeah, try doing that.
Yes, ma'am, I'll work on it.
Thank you.
See, you already marked out some specific options here. Now you see how you're going to build on them. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So as a basis, if you take these options and you start building on them, I'm sure you'll get somewhere. And where your negative and positive space idea is concerned, which Karina is suggesting, you try that, but also stick to the monogram part of it, that we are only using letters. So whatever emerges has to emerge from these letter forms. Okay? So keep that in mind.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So, Karina, continuing, when is our graduation project meeting?
Ma'am, that I'll still have to check with ma'am. So, we can, I think, now begin at 2:30 with the class again.
Let's begin in 1 hour, no? Let's not delay this today, because we started late, no?
Okay, we started 2 then.
We'll start at 2 and we'll take a 45 minutes break, 45 minutes for graduation project meeting. Not more than that.
Okay, I'll just speak to ma'am about it. Yeah. Okay, but so for the rest of you, we regroup at 2. And group, second group has to be ready. Alright.
Second group to be present here.
Sorry,
has to be ready.
Sorry, group third.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Yeah, this was group 4. That's what they've listed out on the chat. Group 1, then group 4 had gone. So now it's going to be group 2.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
See you all at 2 then.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.